Hello and welcome to this video. And on this video, I am going to be discussing something that's in the news at the moment here in the UK. It's the news that the rap group Kneecap did a gig a few days ago, and on that gig, they supported Hezbollah and Hamas, and then they shouted to their audience, urging them to go and kill their local member of parliament. Now, this has been of interest to me because I actually have 3 YouTube channels, which reflect 3 of my interests. Obviously, you're watching the main channel where we discuss music, and Kneecap is a musical group, a rap group from Ireland. And I had never really heard of them until yesterday when this news story broke. So am I the man to be really, doing a video on it? And this video is going to be pretty comprehensive as well. This is going to be a long one. So I'm really going to try and get into the weeds. Now, why would I when I'm not that familiar with the group? Well, the reason is because the political aspect of it I'm very interested in. And on my politics channel, someone said, are you going to cover this story? And it's interesting because it's a music group. And I actually have I have a dilemma when it comes to sort of my musical brain, which is quite progressive. It's quite forward thinking. It's quite revolutionary. And my political brain, which is quite conservative, and all those things are going on. And then, since I was a very small kid, I've had a massive interest in film. And I actually ended up doing my dissertation in French New Wave film. Film's been a big interest for me for many years. And how that relates also to television, to nostalgia, and also to art, which I originally was a painter. That was how I started out, and I did my degree in fine art. And so I have these multitude of interests, which, for the sake of commerciality, i.e. the fact that I'm a YouTuber now, I have had to divide these 3 areas up because as soon as I said there's going to be a political discussion, and I know people who are watching this channel, they've gone, I don't know, Andy, I don't come here for your politics, I come here for your discussion about music. And vice versa, those people who are on my politics channel, if I was just to talk about music, then they might say, look, I haven't come here for that, I'll go to the main channel. And then nobody knows about the film channel. I think it's got hundreds subscribers at the moment. And that really is my baby. I'm not even promoting that much because I want that to organically grow and really be a vehicle for my sort of visual and aesthetic output and my discussion of that. So from my point of view, I'm interested in all these things, okay? And as I looked into this story, I thought the fact that I know a little bit about film and the fact that I know quite a lot about music and its cultural impact and how that works, and the fact that I'm interested in the politics that's surrounding this, I thought I'm quite a good person to try and take this on board, because I tell you what's happened on the politics side, no one's discussing the music. And on this video, I will be discussing the music. And then we get to another contentious area, that this group is a rap group. It's a hip hop group. They rap. And so people who watch this channel, a lot of them don't like rap and they think it's like the devil's music and it's got no artistic worth, which is not what I believe, because I produced rap for many years, a long time ago. I'm very interested in rap, and I think I understand how it works and where the aesthetic quality resides in rap. So I can look at Kneecap and go, well, what are they? How good are they as a rap group, as a music group? So I'm going to tell the story, and hopefully I'm going to pull these 3 elements together, and hopefully this video will be the most realistic and sort of centrist and calm assessment of what's going on, which is incredibly interesting at this moment in time. So let's start with the rap group. So Kneecap are an Irish rap group. Yes, Irish rap. Is there such a thing? But they are even weirder because they don't only rap in the English accent, they predominantly rap in the Irish Gaelic language, which of course for most of us, we don't understand. Now this should be commercial suicide, but Kneecap have been able to really create almost, their own genre of Irish language rap. I went and checked out their music, and I put the first track on, and it just blew me away. Now, why did it blow me away? Because one of the things with rap and hip hop is you've got the loop. That's the music, right? It's very simple, right? It's not like jazz or prog where musicians, it's not like that. But that bit of music has to compel. It has to be like a great riff. So those of you who like rock and you put AC/DC on, that's very simple. But AC/DC have a way of just getting it right, and that riff hits you, okay? And that's what I feel a good beats track on a rap track should be. It should be compelling. And their stuff is. It's compelling in a way that a lot of modern hip-hop and drill isn't. I don't find that musically compelling at all. It seems to be music that has been churned out for people who are blitzed out on marijuana, you know, because I'm sure those sort of beats would sound interesting then. But there's no liveliness to it. There's no energy. But Kneecap's music is full of energy and refers back to a lot of old school hip-hop and also rave and all sorts of things that is very exciting. Then you have the two rappers coming forward. Now, these are great rappers, and they're very dexterous in what they do. And they're jumping between the Irish language and the English language. Now, when you listen to the English language, on the surface, it seems that they are just singing about taking drugs, how great drugs are, and a lot of sort of pro-Republican sentiment. But rather than it being about pro-Republican sentiment, this is almost like a generation that is shouting for their voice to be heard. And these Irish kids are actually proclaiming their Irishness by speaking in this Irish language, which most people don't understand. Now, when I was really listening to rap and I was a big fan of it, one of my favourite rappers was MC Solar, who was a French rapper. And I used to love to listen to him because he was rapping in French and I didn't understand what he was saying. So I could just enjoy the dexterous and beauty in the way that they would use the language rhythmically to create a sort of rhythmical melody across these beats. The beats themselves are actually quite simple. There's nothing to be, you know, blown away, but they're compelling. That's what I mean. They're actually compelling someone to rap. And then they play with that, which makes it interesting. And in that way, it reflects jazz. And once you understand the difference between a good rapper and a bad rapper, you can listen to a rapper in the same way that you would listen to a jazz musician, especially a more modern jazz musician who is dealing a lot more in rhythm than they are dealing in playing through chord changes. I thought this group were really, really good. On top of that, there's this one guy in the background, and he's got this sort of Irish Republican balaclava on and looking quite menacing. And then the two guys up front, these two lads, unlike a lot of modern hip-hop, are lively, funny, entertaining, charismatic. So I think Kneecap are a great group. They are a great group. That's what I think musically. It might not be your thing. It might not be my thing. But, you know, when I was listening to them, I thought, you know, I might buy their album. And then I realised, you know, I'm probably talking like someone who's 100 years old. I thought, what album? I don't know if they have got an album, but I'd like to have it. I would listen to it for my pleasure. That's how much it's one of the best hip-hop groups I have heard for ages. Right? Now, last night, as I sat down to drink my cocoa and, you know, relax after a long day's hard work, I saw Piers Morgan had Sharon Osbourne on, and I thought, oh, I will always listen to Sharon Osbourne because she's married to Ozzy Osbourne and she's the daughter of Don Arden, and they're all like part of my sort of West Midlands music community. So I thought, what's she's going on? And she was moaning because the Kneecap, this rap group, had done a gig and they had shouted support for Hamas. They had shouted support for Hezbollah. And then they had shouted saying, you know, for urging the audience to go and kill their local MP. Now, here in the UK, this is quite a touchy subject because we've had two MPs murdered by their constituents. One was a Labour MP who was killed by the extreme right wing, and the other was a Conservative MP that was killed by somebody who was obviously supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, perhaps, maybe. And so we're very touchy about this, and it's very irresponsible for these people who are so anti-British to be shouting this sort of sentiment. Now, on top of this, yesterday, this was discussed in the Houses of Parliament. And Conservative MPs were saying to Labour MPs, you had your photograph taken with this rap group. Are you going to apologise for that? And I'm thinking, apologise for having the photograph taken? I'm finding this really difficult to deal with on the right, is the fact that they are acting in many ways as controlling as those on the left in terms of what people should do and say and what they need to apologise for. You know, how can you apologise for having your photograph taken with someone? It's just ridiculous. So I didn't like that. And also, in this discussion, there was no discussion of the art. And if there had been a discussion of the art, how deep would have that discussion be to actually deal with what's going on? In other words, I could turn that around and say, if an artist makes an artistic statement in which they say, kill your local MP, do we treat everyone as so dumb as to go, even though they might be saying it for an artistic reason, the general public are too stupid, so we can't have that because someone might just hear it and do it? Or is it the fact that, you know, when people have gone out and killed people, I mean, that guy that tried to shoot Ronald Reagan had done it because he'd watched Taxi Driver. You know, youths in America went up and shot the school up because they believed that message was on a Judas Priest album. If the psychotic can get motivated to do this stuff, who are we to say what that sort of stuff is that they get motivated by? And that then points a picture which, if you watch this channel and you know really what I'm talking about on this channel, should be of interest to you, is that how much are we going to take art seriously? How much are we going to go, look, this is art, and divide art off and treat it differently to just someone in the street shouting? Or is it all exactly the same? And that is an aesthetic question that art tries to deal with, okay? So there's that. Now, as I was looking into this, I suddenly realised I did know who this group was. I went to this thinking, I don't know who this group is. But then I realised I did know who this group was because there is a film, a biographical film of this rap group called Kneecap. And I'd watched this film about 6 months ago. I'd enjoyed it, but I didn't quite get it. And as I watched it, I thought, this is quite entertaining, but it's completely unrealistic. This is what I thought. This is ridiculous what this film's about. You know, I can't quite believe the premise that there's some, you know, Irish rap group that rap in their own language and they become massively successful because of it. So I dismissed it on that level, which is what happens with art. This is what's going on all the time. So, but I'd enjoyed the film. I'd watched it already, and then all the pennies dropped. And so I then, last night I watched the film again, and I started to get much more out of it. And I started to get an understanding of what the themes of the film were, which helped me understand the themes of the rap group, and then helped me understand in a much deeper way, I felt, what is going on contextually with this news event and how that's being spun by both sides for them to score political points. Now, there's one more aspect of this. When the Conservatives were in power, this rap group applied for a grant, a taxpayer-paid government grant to support them in getting music out there. And then when the person who would have dealt with that in the Conservative Party, who happened to be Kemi Badenoch, who is now leader of the Conservative Party, saw this coming through, she blocked it, seeing it as being anti-British, which is what it is. Or is it? Then the Labour come in, the rap group mount a, what's the word, you know, when you fight against something, I've forgotten that word, an appeal. And the Labour government, they will stand by that appeal, so the money's been released out. So now you have the deeper thing that the Conservatives tried to block this, what seems like a pro-terrorist, inciting violence leftist group, and the Labour Party supported them, thus supporting the idea that there's a two-tier justice system going on here in the UK, which I think there is. And I undoubtedly know that in the UK here, we have had 250,000 people visited by the police for non-crime, hate crime crimes, whatever they are. This is how much of a bloody 1984 scenario we're in. And there are literally hundreds of people in prison now, spent, serving relatively long terms in prison for sharing memes, putting a sentence up on Facebook. Now, I don't agree with that, but it's not because I agree with them. It's because I don't agree that you should go to prison for 2.5 years for putting something up on Facebook, especially if you regret it and take it down. And in Lucy Connolly's case, who is the wife of a Conservative councillor, she put something down about burning down. She says, I don't care if someone burns down these migrant hotels here in the UK, which isn't a very nice statement, but I would argue it's not an incitement of violence. She wasn't commanding anybody to do that, but she then regretted it and took it down 4 hours later. But she's serving 2.5 years in prison for that. I absolutely think this is wrong. And so I know that this rap group will not be arrested for this unless the political pressure is so strong that it forces them to do this. And then that almost like it becomes a show trial. And so there is something for me underneath all of this on every single side that I am not happy with, okay? And I think if I could spell it out here, most people watching this channel will go, yeah, I'm not happy with any of this, really. What the hell is going on? All right, so what I'm going to do now is I've done a little bit of an exposition of the rap group, and well, I think they're great. But I'm now going to talk about the film. The film, which is called Kneecap, is like a cross between The Commitments, a Guy Ritchie film like Snatch, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So if you imagine putting all those together, and what I mean by that is stylistically, it borrows from a lot of other films. Now, this film is a comedy, and the reason why I enjoyed it, because it made me laugh all the way through it. It is a funny film. This film is supposedly a biography of this band. But if that is actually what happened, I'm amazed because this film seems to be an absolute fiction. And it seems to act as a piece of entertainment. It seems to me to have a message and a strong message, but what I'm very aware of is that we live in a time now where the media is different, where music is different, and it's acting in a different way within the cultural climate. So what we have here is a rap group having a film made about them, which obviously costs millions of pounds. How has that happened? How has this rap group got there in the position where somebody decided to make that film? And the rappers play themselves, and they're really, really good, because these guys are massively talented, they're massively charismatic, and they're really entertaining. There's a deeper thing in this film that I'm now going to try and get to. So in doing that, I'm going to have to spoil the film for you by going through the plot. So it starts out with this guy that was part of the Troubles. He was a fighter against the British in the Troubles, which, as we all know, were sort of put to bed by the Blair government. They managed to get everybody around the table, and some sort of peace has carried on. This guy was going to get arrested for blowing various things up in the UK. So he's a terrorist. This bloke's a terrorist. And he's also the father of these two kids, or I think he's the father, and he's got a wife. And he brought these kids up to speak the Irish language. So they speak in the Irish language, which is a very strong statement for people in Ireland of their Irishness. It's like saying, I am not British. I'm definitely not English. I am Irish, and this is the difference. Our language is the difference. This guy, after blowing stuff up, goes on the run, and he fakes his own death, and he ends up like in hiding for years and years. The mainstream think he's dead, but he's not, and he has to leave the home. So his wife is in a very strange position where she is the widow of somebody who's still alive. These kids grow up without that sort of parental control, and they become petty drug dealers, basically, and they're heavily into their drugs, and they understand how the internet works, and they're getting their drugs on the internet. Now, this bit is actually true. This happened to one of the guys, I think, in the rap group. He got arrested for a petty crime. In reality, they'd done a single which was, it was an Irish word, apostrophised, C-E-A-R-T-A, right? And they sprayed that on a bus stop, as hip-hop types do. Got arrested for it. And when they went to be interrogated, they would not speak in English. So this was a statement of their Irish up against, you know, a constabulary, which could have been very British sympathetic, let's just say. In the film, this guy comes in, he's a random guy, he's a music teacher in a school, very respectable. He's brought in because he can speak the Irish language. And this rapper kid from Kneecap, he said, look, whose side you on? He says it in the Irish language so the police can't understand. So he decides to support them. And in supporting them, he acquires the rap lyrics books. And the conceit of the film is this guy, because it's the chances this happened 1,000,000 to 1. He happens to be a music teacher. He happens to speak the English language. And his wife is part of the respectable front of this campaign to keep the the Irish language alive in Ireland. He reads through this rapping and he thinks this is great. No one's ever rapped in the Irish language. Approaches them, and because he's a music teacher, he starts to program all these beats. He doesn't want to be seen, so they put this balaclava on him with an Irish Republican flag on it. And they go out and they become a big success. And with it, there's lots of jolly japes. They take lots and lots of drugs. There's this idea that the previous generation are anti-drugs, and they don't like the fact that kids are taking drugs. They're still Republicans and they're fighting the fight. There is a wonderfully funny scene where they're about to go on stage and they're going to take some coke. Instead, they make a mistake and they take ketamine. And as they take the ketamine, they realise this is really going to hit them so hard as they're walking on stage. And as this one guy's trying to explain that it'll all be okay and don't need to worry, he morphs into what I thought was Sigmund Freud. But it actually turns out to be Jerry Adams, and it actually is Jerry Adams. This is how funny the film is. This drugged up rapper's about to go on stage, he's mistakenly taking heroin, and when he takes it, he morphs into Jerry Adams. I think that's just brilliant. That's great. It's funny. You know, you think, well, Jerry Adams is you know, agreed to take part, although he wouldn't speak and he wouldn't swear or say anything bad. And it points to the history of what's gone on. Now, as the film, you know, goes through this sort of commitments-esque Irish humour, a lot of silliness, a lot of stuff which is really glamorising drugs in a way. I mean, they get so off their heads on so much drugs. Nobody dies. This happens. There doesn't seem to be repercussions for anything. And it goes on like that. It's all very funny. It's like, to me, there was a thing that happened in the film industry when Martin Scorsese made Goodfellas, and he decided to depict the sort of underworld gangster world in a way which was different to the way The Godfather had portrayed it, and that was different to the way it had been portrayed by Edward G. Robinson films in the 1930s. A lot more realistic, a lot more gritty, but also a lot of camera work, a lot of freeze frames, a lot of narration, and he pulled out all the tricks. Now, I was at art college, and I was friends with the filmmakers. We went to see Goodfellas. I can't tell you, it's like people were pooing their pants when that film came out. I can remember I sat next to a filmmaker, and that opening scene when they grab that guy, stick him in the boot, and they're about to kill him, and then he slams the thing down, the red lights light up Ray Liotta, and he goes, I always wanted to be a gangster. And the filmmaker gasped next to me because it was so incredible. And the language of that sort of hyper-realism of Scorsese has been taken up by people like Guy Ritchie, which has created like these fantasy films. They're just pure entertainment, absolutely ridiculous within that genre and that language. And that has now taken over a whole aspect of filmmaking. And this film is within that. So if we're saying it's dealing with quite a heavy subject, which I don't think it actually is, it's done in this way that's very appealing. Because they're rappers and they write stuff down, you see on screen the writing going across. And it reminded me very much of Adrian Mole and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And the japes that these kids get into reminded me very much of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So in terms of filmmaking, it's not heavy, it's light, it's appealing, right? But there's a theme that comes out in this film. And what it is, it's about generations. So this rap group, are they're young guys, and they are rapping about the world that they live in, right? And their world is devoid of meaning in a way the generation before they had loads, because the generation before in Ireland really believed in the cause, whichever side they were on. Even though they were either one of the British out, and they were willing to die and kill for that, and then the same side, the Protestants and all that lot they were against each other. They were at loggerheads, but they had a belief of what they were trying to do. That once the troubles were stopped, it didn't all go away. And so this is a reflection of these kids growing up in Ireland, within a sort of working class community, which has inherited a history which is very similar to African Americans, like black people in America. People have always said the Irish are the blacks of the United Kingdom. There's that famous apocryphal thing that, when the Irish immigrants came to London in the 1950s, all the, rental places, hostels, put a sign in there saying, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. So The Commitments was a genius film in that it goes right into the sort of decay of working class Ireland and how that's been affected by all sorts of things. And within that, it takes the Irish humour and it states specifically that the reason why they form a soul band and it works is because they are an underclass and they identify with the underclass that's in America. That sort of freedom fighting revolutionary rights. Now, the thing is that once the troubles are sorted out, that doesn't go away. So those kids have grown up within that, and they've got a generation above them who feel that they're really worthy, that they were fighting the cause. And the father's like this. And in the film, there's a point where the dad comes back, he hasn't seen the wife, and they have a conversation. He's speaking in the Irish language, she's speaking in the British language. He's saying that I've had to sacrifice my life and do all this, for the cause, and it's so important that he doesn't get caught because it will be like a victory. And she turns around to him and says, no, you did that because you didn't want to go to prison and you sacrificed us all. And in that was the depth that you could see a problem going on in that generation, my generation, but in Ireland, there's that generation, and then their kids are coming up in this meaningless place where one of the few things that they could fight for in terms of their Irishness would be to speak in the Irish language, to rap in the Irish language. But the generation above, the sort of traditional Irish people, do not want them to be talking about sex and drugs and drug taking and drug dealing and violence in the Irish language. And there we have, that's the grist of this band, right? So they basically, this is an assertion of their Irishness for that generation. It's countercultural and it's challenging the mainstream, okay? This is what Kneecap do. This is what they are about. Now, the question is, I think, once we've set all that out, as I have just done, we see that there could well be in Ireland a generation divide that we don't so much have here in the UK or maybe in America. Because, and this comes into another aspect that I want to discuss, which I will now discuss, going to bring another element in. As I was watching it, I thought, the trouble with all this is that this group is a pop group, and they're successful. They're playing Glastonbury in the summer, so they're successful. These guys have got out, and they're part of a business, so they're selling this. This is, and it's always been the case. People have always sold Revolution. They've always, as soon as it became a commodity, in the 1960s, it was real. The record companies did not know what to do, so they just signed up everything, and there was a massive generation divide. But as our culture has progressed, that idea has been commodified. And so here, what we have in this film is lots of montage shots that really portray this sort of hedonist lifestyle as though it's really great. It's really positive. They're all having fun. You know, it's like an 1830 holiday and it's all fun and everything's great. And they're carefree. All right. And it's put within, oh, we're bad, we're taking drugs, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're breaking the law, we're having fights. You know, people have fights, but they don't have to go to hospital afterwards. You know, they get kicked in the face, but they're perfectly all right, you know, the next day, just with a little scratch above their head. The whole thing's a fiction. The whole thing is just pushing the buttons of our contemporary culture. This would be my real criticism of this, right? I know how this works. This Kneecap group have been picked up. They have had a film made about them and they are now a huge success. And they are on stage playing an act for that generation to jump up and down and feel revolutionary, feel like they're kicking against the system, because that is the mainstream thing to do. That is the conservative thing to do. This film, no one wants to ban it. No one wants to question it. That's not the great taboo. We know what the great taboos are in this culture at the moment, don't we? I could start talking about all sorts of things now that would get this channel closed down. I could do it like that. Those things hover literally that far away from me the whole time. Me as a YouTuber making these videos, I have learned that I need to be able to sit here, free associate, you know, go into a video like this. This is a difficult video for me because my conclusion, I don't know. I'm moving towards a conclusion I don't know, which means I need to be free to be able to mess with these ideas and go with where I want. I'm using the medium of YouTube, of the talking head, for you to actually see that process happening. I haven't got a line of notes. I don't know what the conclusion is going to be, but I'm moving towards it. I'm analysing it as you watch. This is something that you can't do in an essay. This is something you cannot do in a documentary. This is something you can do on YouTube, right? This is the new media. That film Kneecap is the old media. That rap group on stage playing Glastonbury means they're part of the establishment, right? And here, if I wanted to, I could say whatever I want, except I can't, because there are things now in our culture that forbid free speech. Making films about kids taking drugs and setting fire to stuff and gangs going around beating each other up and trying to kill each other and all this type of stuff, and is all part of the mainstream media. It's a cliche which sells stuff. And so, if you really want my honest opinion about what they said in that gig, right? They are not planning to kill any MPs. This rap group isn't. They're part of the establishment now, and they won't want to rock that boat. They're so part of the establishment, they have really good people working for them that were able to get 14,000 quid out of our government. And when Kemi Badenoch stopped it, they had the ability to appeal against it and get that overturned. Now, I've worked in community arts, I've gone for those funds, and that's incredible. They're part of the establishment because the establishment is that leftist, you know, pseudo-revolutionary thing. That's all the stuff that ticks the boxes. Kneecap tick the boxes of the establishment, the metropolitan middle-class elite establishment, right? That not those honourable IRA freedom fighters that are portrayed in the film, right? Not those who had a cause. I'm on about the ones that are around now here. They love a bit of that, right? There is nothing that this group's doing which would upset the mainstream. And so it's an act of defiance when certain people stand up and say, how come they're not going to get arrested for inciting violence? That's the act of defiance, is questioning that, I believe, because you are pushing against the mainstream. That group are not planning to kill any MPs. They do not want their audience to kill any MPs. They want to be able to jump around and shout things that sound like they are revolutionary types. They want to push that button. Isn't that right? I am convinced of this. The people that support Palestine and Hamas, you know, the people that turn up, you know, in London with the sort of Palestinian things around their necks and all that type of stuff, that is basically virtue signaling for the middle class. That's what that is. And the middle class are really in control. It's the middle classes that create the inequality. It's the middle classes that don't pay enough tax. It's not the billionaires. It's the middle classes. It's the middle classes that buy stuff and turn, Bezos into millionaires. It's the middle classes. The class divide still goes on. Right? These kids probably were working class. I don't know anything about their background. Tried to find out, couldn't find out. No one's saying who they are. In the film, they're portrayed as right rapscallions. But these rapscallions seem to not really have a care in the world, and I don't think it's really like that for people who are right at the bottom of the pile. I don't think those people take drugs in some sort of joyous way and jump around and rub their nipples and do all that funny stuff. They actually sit there in desperation, just trying to block out the horror of the situation. And that would not be portrayed in this film in the way that it was with Trainspotting, which was another film that I thought of. I thought of Trainspotting. I thought Trainspotting creates this language, but within that, Danny Boyle, was able to show all the positive aspects of drugs whilst making anybody who watched it never wanted to take drugs. The degradation, the immorality of the characters. Because with this film, the immorality of the main characters is sort of championed in only the fact that it's funny and it'll get people to like the film. Whereas Danny Boyle was able to take that Trainspotting book and show you the immorality of these people and create much more complex. I mean, Trainspotting is a work of absolute genius, and every single frame of that film references things that are going on at such a deep level. So there's no babies left to die in a heap of used needles, as is in Trainspotting. So I think they're a great rap group. I think they're a great pop group, basically. I think that there is an aspect of that generation that in championing their Irishness is really commendable. And there's aspects of it that are really positive. There's aspects of the film which are quite deep to expose that generation divide and show the fact that these kids are a little bit lost. Because I think that generation is lost. But I'm also very aware of the commercial climate it resides in. So basically what I'm saying kill your local MP and saying, support Hamas, support Hezbollah, right? That is like generic fake posturing. It's as though you got the 1960s, it's a revolutionary time. By the time we get to the 1990s, people like Oliver Stone are making films like The Doors. And they turn all of that into a cliche. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Truman Capote writes a book about going to Las Vegas, taking loads of drugs, hallucinating, all that. It's a countercultural book. All the countercultural people are reading it. But years later, it's a Hollywood film with Johnny Depp in. And what's happened is the commodification of this is turned around. This is no longer the aesthetic language of the revolutionary types. It's the aesthetic language of what those 60s hippies become. Now they are all retired now, and they all got really good jobs. Remember Frank Zappa said in the 1980s they went from hippies to yuppies. Now they're granddads, and they've sat there with their houses that are worth a ton of money, sat on a big ton of money, go on holiday. They've come out, they have the best life ever. They shouldn't have moaned, shouldn't they? Really, they had it good. And what's happened is their sort of youth has been commodified. We all know it, and films will have to refer to it. The revolution has become a commodity that is pushed by the mainstream and allowed to come through. But that accompanies the atrophying of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Once you start to make films about it, once you start to celebrate, once Malcolm X has got his own documentary, Martin Luther King's got his own documentary, and Che Guevara's got film biography, and you've got film stars playing all of them, right? Once you've got all that, okay, then the establishment has taken that on board. It's become the conservative point of view. That's what we have now. The people who are objecting to anyone who pushes against this are middle-class people, educated people, people who went to university, they've studied under all this sort of dogma and ideology. But this rap group isn't that. It's just the lost kids at the bottom, just taking drugs, having a good time. There's not much meaning there, right? So I would say that if I analyse it with a brain, which I think we should have a culture where you do that, when I step back and say, why did he say go kill your local MP, right? It's the same as when Lemmy said eat the rich. And Lemmy never got in trouble for that because he didn't really mean it. And Kneecap don't really mean it. That's the bottom line. They don't really mean it. And those people who tweeted stuff out, they didn't really mean it. The mode of expression has changed, right? You could feel safe in the knowledge that if somebody goes and kills their local MP, it won't be because someone just said, go and kill your local MP. Their reasons will be far more deeper and weirder, and you won't be able to actually accommodate in the future for that. And so to take away people's freedom of speech based upon that is wrong. Okay? Incitement to violence is where you say, everyone meet in this park, bring a bunch of petrol bombs, we're going to throw them at that house, blah, blah, blah. That's incitement to violence. Random comments like this are not incitement to violence. They have a context. I don't think Kneecap should get in trouble. I think they're a really good music act. In that, I think they're really entertaining. I think they're really good rappers. The stuff's funny, it's interesting, it pokes fun, and it expresses a certain aspect of youth, which fundamentally has some sort of joy and energy in it, which I don't see in a lot of modern popular music. I like them. I think they're great. I think the film is good. It's an entertaining film, like The Commitments was. It's an entertaining film. Underneath it, it says things about being Irish now and what being Irish is. It has, every great film has to have a meaning, you know, but not every popular film is Citizen Kane or, you know, I don't know, a Buddha souffle. They're just popular films. They have to have a sort of basic meaning in for people to enjoy them. But this is the arts, and we've got to allow the arts to do what they want to do. So my conclusion I'm moving to after this hour-long, because it's going to be an hour and this is done, this hour-long exploration into this news story, I suppose, is that we all need to calm it down a little bit, right? And we've got to see that the filmmakers are trying to have a hit film and get their film put on Amazon and get it on Netflix and get all that money coming in, you know, and all that stuff. That's what they're trying to do. That this group are trying to make pop records that people will like, which means they'll put it on the car driver and they won't care about the lyrics whatsoever. It'll just have a cool groove and the rapping will be attractive and make you want to move, which it did as soon as I put it on. I felt that straight away. Great. And the politicians will use whatever they can to try and expose this divide. Because by exposing a divide, they ensure that there is a divide so they can be voted for. Because without the divide, they can't be voted for. And with that, I have a realization. Thank God for that, because it's come in the last 15 minutes. This is a game. The media is too all-powerful. The media's too all-powerful and no one's got any control of it. The politicians, the billionaires, no one's got control of this. This is a monster. This is a monster. So everyone's trying to appease it or work with it. You know, they're trying to grab hold of it. We've unleashed this beast into the room and everyone's trying to stroke it and get it on side. But at any moment, it can just snap and destroy you. Now, with the advent of social media, the advent of me being able to talk to you, because I had an idea today, you see. And this is why I'm doing this video. And I'm going to fast track this video through. And in fast tracking this video through, there's an aspect to this, which I'm aware of, which I haven't spoken. It is now around about, I don't know the time, but I guess it's around about 10:15 on Friday, the 2nd of May, I think. Is it 2nd of May or 3rd of May? I'm not too sure the dates. That's how I roll. It's the morning. I've come here to do this video. This video will have no editing in it. Can't, because I know how YouTube works. So I'm creating this video now. I've really made it look pretty. I've got my lovely light here. I've got a baffling light there. Give me the nice white. I have looked at the aesthetic quality, but this is essentially a bloke talking to you into a camera. But I've spent some time. I've brushed off the dandruff off my shoulders this time. I've just sat down and gone straight into it. And I've made my hair very, very neat. And I look nice and smart, and I've had a shave. So I'm presenting something that's quite proper here, in lieu of the fact that there's not going to be all like clever editing and photographs, which is just a bloke talking at you. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I have these three interests. But I'm very aware on YouTube, to get the views, you have to have a title and a thumbnail, and you have to bring people to it, and you have to talk about that. So if on a music channel, I have to go, here's something contentious and interesting about music, ? And then you go, oh, click on that. And then I have to come on and talk about it. And if I come and talked about something else or did anything else, no one would like it. And they would turn around and go, I'm not interested in your politics. Now, I've taken the risk here. Because some people go, I don't come here for your politics, Andy. You come here about my talks about music, and I feel I can talk about anything to do with music, especially newsworthy events. And I've done this all the way through from the beginning of the channel, so you can't complain about that. I have done it all the time. Something happens in music news that actually goes beyond the music news, I'll come out and talk about it. Right, yeah, but you've talked about a rap group. We don't like rap here. Well, you might not like rap, but I have talked about rap since the beginning of time. And actually, in the jazz fusion world, in the 90s, there was a rap jazz fusion crossover with, you know, jazz guitars and stolen moments and all that type of stuff. So I'm perfectly happy to come on here and talk about music, but certain people are getting steamed up, aren't they? Now, who's getting steamed up about this video? Is it those on the left or the right? It's the ones on the left, right? And they are parroting the establishment, okay? So they are saying, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be that. You've got it wrong. You haven't done your research. You don't know about this. I'm only coming here to listen to music. I'm not interested in your politics, blah, blah. So I've created 3 channels because I am. And I can't talk about one without the other. They all relate. But I've divided them up into these 3. I have this music channel. I have a politics channel, which is called Nothing, Anything, Something, I think. And then I have another film channel, which I haven't really told anybody about, which is called The Magic Box. Now, when this happened, I went, this covers everything. This covers everything I'm interested in. So I had the idea of doing a nice video here. In the time scale I've got, here's the nice video. It's coming out at 6 p.m. UK time this evening. This is when it's coming out. I'm filming it now, but I'm aware you'll be watching it this evening. I've also created a video which is in the genre of my politics channel, which is that's just a random bloke driving around in his car just chatting. So I have a complimentary video. Now, if you're watching this one first, you can, once you finish this, you can click on the link that's down below and go and watch the politics channel video, which will bring you to my politics channel. And I am playing the game of YouTube, so because I have to consider commercial constraints. Great art has always considered commercial constraints. Great art is linked directly into profit. Everything that we know about art, and art's one of this really important thing, does not exist without profit. That is the glaring thing. And what's happened with the internet was once you expand, you go from the printing press to like film and recorded music, and then you go from recorded music to like this digital, you know, this digital democratizing power where I can film this really easily. I'm film it on my iPhone, I'll take it home, directly zip it straight up onto YouTube, and then a few thousand people will watch this. You know, 20 years ago, that would have cost me so much money, and the time scale would be so slow. I'm playing with the time scale. I've created a YouTube loop. Those of you watching on this channel may well go and click the other video and watch that. And that video finishes with me getting out my car and walking into this space ending up here, and then you see this. Those who watch the politics channel will have watched that at 5 o'clock. Then they will have come across and they will see a continuation across the channels. I've created a loop, a time loop deliberately, where the proper video is in after that, to make you aware of how this process works, how Kneecap fit into it, how the film Kneecap fits into it, how our political parties fit into it, how the organizations that are making all the money out of this, like YouTube and Google and Amazon and Facebook, and how they control our lives and how that works, and how we are all having to kowtow to that. We're having to kowtow to the impingements on freedom of speech that come with this, but also dealing with the fact that so many people now do have freedom of speech. And that is primarily what this story is about. Now, I can remember Andrew Marr made a history of Britain, and it ran up to the Blair government. And I can remember when he got to the last episode, and he was right up to the contemporary time then, which was about 20 years ago, he said, life's great now, we're affluent, there's no problems going on, we sort of sorted it, there's not much difference between the left, there's not much difference between the right, blah, 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 and all that bit. He was saying all that. And that's what people used to say. They still sort of say that, don't they? They'll still go, oh, there's no difference between them. They're all the same. You know, as though Keir Starmer has the same set of ideals and beliefs to Nigel Farage. You know, but that's what people will say, won't they? Now, if you end up being in that situation, right, you have to create a political divide. And that is what is going on. A divide is being created. And it's being created by a system which is completely out of control. It's not being created by some mastermind. It's being created by all the little people that in the end want to hold on to their position at all costs. Kneecap get on stage and they shouted that for one reason. And the one reason was in saying support Hamas, support Hezbollah, which is against the law because they're supporting a terrorist organisation. Go and kill an MP. They are saying, I am on this part of the divide and you lot are as well. Okay? And they're not heading to some weird club where all the weird revolution types go. They're heading to Glastonbury, the most mainstream, middle-class, affluent music festival on the face of the planet. And they can get up and say that to that lot, and they'll all cheer it. And so what's happened, the powers that be to create their divide, because, you know, we know that Keir Starmer, for always trumpeting the fact that he's centrist and he's just trying to do this, we've got to rescue the economy from, you know, what the Tories did to it. We know that deep down, that is not what his political affiliations are. He has got a set of ideals that makes it seem okay to him to stick people, fast-track people into prison for putting stuff on Facebook. He thinks that's okay, and I don't. That's the difference. Whereas Farage, he just wants to be more notorious, more famous. He doesn't really seem to do the everyday job of an MP and never seems to have done that. They're all trying to maintain their position, the whole lot are. We are just sat at the bottom of it, looked around, being kicked around all over the place. So one of the things that's come out for me about YouTube as a vessel of doing this, and I've done a lot of this now, so I've had a lot of time to think about it, is the positive aspect of this is that it's all about connectedness. I call it love. I try and go to where the love is, but by love I mean connectedness. Those of you who are watching it, those of you who agree with my politics or don't agree with my politics, I think if we were to sit down face to face, we could thrash out what we agree on. You know, so if I say, for example, people should be allowed to do what they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody else. Is that a good solid ground that we could build from? Does everyone agree with that? Now, we might have different takes on it, right? But if we apply that to this situation with Kneecap, are they hurting anybody? Well, the question is, this is a deep philosophical question. If next week someone kills an MP. And they said, oh, I did it because Kneecap told me to. All right? My question would be this, where did you hear that? Oh, were you at the concert? No, I saw it on the internet. Everyone was going on about it. So if we believe this is a terrible thing, if you're on the things that say they should go to prison for it, it would have been best just not to mention this and just to let it locally reside in that concert. But it was pushed for a reason, wasn't it? Right. If you think that them saying that is an incitement to violence and it's got to be controlled, you're acting like you know what makes people be incited to violence. Because if I was faced with some guy that decided to, they saw a news report and, the guys from Kneecap said, go and kill your local MP. And they went, okay, that's what I'm doing tomorrow then, My question was, had you planned to do that already? No, I hadn't even thought about it until they said that. And then I thought, well, okay, then I'll go and do it. I would not be seeing that piece of language as being the incitement. I would be looking at that person's mental process and what's going on there. And if we want to understand the mental process of young people or understand the mental process of Irish people, if we want to have an expression of how they feel, we need Kneecap around. We need them doing it in such an entertaining way because it opens a door to something. And I've come away from all of this thinking, if you're Irish now and there's no cause to be involved with, you can't proclaim your Irishness. Now, I'm all for people proclaiming their Irishness because, I'm an Englishman. I'm an English. Hang on, if I could I have to hold that like that. I'm an English. Oh, I'm showing too much chest, and Englishmen don't show chest. I need to have a waistcoat, but I'll try it like that. I'm an Englishman, and I'm proud of this country. I'm proud of it not because I believe in any of the values really. It's aesthetically. I love the trees. I love the little bees. I love the little streets. I love people walking down the road and go, nice day, isn't it? Yes, nice day. I love all that, And someone was describing the history of tea yesterday and how the British, they created this environment, that tea wasn't, tea's not British, apparently. Of course, it's bloody British. And because what's drinking tea, the bit that's British is that you go to a nice little tea room somewhere in a village. You walk in and it's all chintzy. And you order a cup of tea and maybe some sort of muffin with jam in, something like that. And you sit down. That is something that I love. I love it. So the Irish, I've toured Ireland. Ireland is just one of the most beautiful places. It's just so different to England. And there's a peacefulness. There's like a Zen peacefulness to Ireland that I absolutely love. It's a wonderful place. And that needs to be protected. And if it means people speaking that Irish language, if that's a symbol of the fight that they've got, then that's a symbol of the fight they've got. And my basic message on all of this is all being wound up. It's all being, am I doing it here? I have to do it. You see, I have to do it. I thought, shall I do this Kneecap video? Well, I know that people are searching for that. I know I'm in the algorithm. I've got 50,000 subscribers. If I get because I think I'm going to call this Kneecap the whole story. That's what I'm thinking of calling it. And that will pull in people and go, I don't know what's going on. I know Andy. I'll trust him. And they might want to hear the story. And they have. They've heard everything that I know about it. And I've pretty much covered everything that you need to know in this video. It's an hour long. That's what I've done. But my conclusion is in reality, what the internet, this is the internet that's causing all this. But it's not the cause, it's all the individuals and how they act and their own self-interest. It's self-interest that's driving this. That's what I believe. I have really tried my hardest on this video to scoot through all my own personal political beliefs and or not be anti the people who are anti my political beliefs, but skirt my way through it and arrive at the reality of it. But just go, what is going on? We know what's going on, don't we? We're all being stoked up over nothing. Kneecap get richer, right? The film makes more money. The politicians have the divide, so then you got the population voting for you because you're not like the other one, and they can argue their case then, can't they? The whole thing has been kicked up. There are things out there that are being exposed by the internet that aren't silly. It's not just some rap group shouting, you know, kill your local MP. This is not anything to worry about. It's not anything to worry about. It's not a symptom of anything beyond what I've explained on this video. Right? We need to focus on the real problems. Right? And we need to have a system of art which gives us an idea what it's like. I have a better idea from Kneecap's music, even if they are posh boys or not posh boys, even if they, whatever it is, I don't care, is it's given me an insight, a different insight into what it could be like. Not necessarily what it is, but what it could be like to be Irish. It's opened the door to a different viewpoint, so I have empathy now for somebody else. That is what art does. That's what I want to do here. I think that's what you want to do here. We have to create a connectedness. We have to push towards common ground. We have to let the artists speak. We have to hold our breath if we think they've said something that's bad and just consider it a little bit more and listen to what other people say. It's good that art's being made. That concert was a piece of art. There is a discussion now going on, and me, 57-year-old Andy, likes progressive rock, has spent an hour discussing the art of that concert and the reach it has. And my conclusion is we need to err towards the more complex, contextual, nuanced point of view. And we need to hold our breath, and we need to not react. We need to say we don't know, at least for a few moments, and just collect ourselves. In 2000, I did a tour of Ireland. I've gone on about it a lot because I was playing with Rock Plant, and we were opening up, although it was supposed to be double headliner, but we were opening up for Van Morrison, who is the king of Ireland. And I have gone on about my personal sort of meeting Van Morrison has formed the sort of aspect of a certain comedy aspect of this channel. What was interesting about that trip was we got picked up from the airport, and this guy who was the bus driver, he was just a regular bus driver, he gets on driving this minibus for us. He's driving us to the hotel. And as he's driving us, Robert's in there, we're all in there. Now, Robert had his own car because he's got a really bad back in a car crash. It wasn't because he was doing the rock gog. He didn't want to sit in this minibus because it was going to knacker up his back. And as we drive there, this guy starts to talk about the history of Ireland. That's where so-and-so happened. That's where that happened. And he's doing all this. And Robert's really loving all this. So when we stop, he goes, I'll pay you to be our driver for the whole of the trip. And Robert put up with a bad back to be driven around. And this guy was given carte blanche to rather just drive from one gig to the next. We were parking up in this place, going to this monastery, going and, you know, to these big famous cliffs, going all around place, having cups of tea over there, chatting. And unlike most tours, this one was one where this bloke just opened up this whole world of Ireland. And I absolutely love this bloke. I wish I knew who he was. He was incredible. 25 years later, I still remember it. And everyone else will remember this bloke for giving us this guided tour of Ireland. He was talking about the potato famine. He was talking about this battle that went on here. He knew everything. He was just a bus driver. And throughout Ireland, it was as though you were up against this sort of Zen, like, which is un-English. Because I can remember we were driving down to this place and we were lost. And we stopped and this Irish bloke was on the side. And this bloke goes, is the venue down there on the left? And the bloke went, I don't know about that, but if you're coming from the other way, it'll be on the right. And he went, okay, thanks. And drove off. And I was like, what does that mean? What's going on? I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Right? Art is for that. Music is for that. Life is for that. We need to reach our arms out. And this is how that peace process happened. So when Jerry Adams appeared in that ketamine hallucination, he's the wise old man, because in the end, he was part of the people that were able to do the thing I'm saying, despite all their differences. That is what has to happen in the Ukraine. That's what has to happen in the Sudan. That's what needs to happen in Palestine. That's what needs to happen. They could shout, they're pro-Hamas. It's a nonsense. The Hamas are an evil entity. And some of the actions of Israel, you would have thought they would have, stayed their hand. They would have wound that their back a little bit when faced with just killing children. None of us are, most normal people are not happy with any of it, because we know that you have to get around a table, but they cannot. Why? Because they're here. And our politicians are trying to push us to be here. And the media's trying to push us to be here, where most of us are here. And the best thing that I could finish this video, which I can't do, is for Kneecap to walk in and for the sit down and just go, "You right, guys? What do you think? Oh God, it's a lot we did." And just show that they're just people. They are just people. If they're not, if they came in acting a certain way, I want to feel it in myself, up close. I want to know it myself. I want to make the judgment myself. That's what I want to try and communicate on this. That is where I've got to with this. My conclusion, to put it simply, is let's just let live and let live. If you like this video, put a like on it. If you want to see some more like this, subscribe. I have a Patreon down below. You can become a free member or a paid member, the best sort of member. You can go to my PayPal tip jar and put some money in the PayPal tip jar so I can buy some food for my kids, because I'm a starving artist. That's down there as well. You could also become a subscriber to my Bandcamp. There's 50 albums there. I'm just working on another album and I'm going to be releasing that soon. You get all that for about 15 quid for the year, I think. You can go become a member of my Substack, and I've got a whole bunch of podcasts there. I sometimes put essays up, not enough to be honest, but there's a whole ton of stuff there if you want to go reading that sort of stuff. What else do you do? You can become a member here. You can become a member of this channel and get to watch these videos before they come out. And I'm trying my best to get some original content up for the members. I'm trying to make my best to do this. And if I get my politics channel up and going, and if that starts to make some income, I am going to use that to employ someone, and then this all starts to get a little bit easier, and then I can start to do what I really want to do. So if you click on the links below now, you will be able to go to my politics channel. You'll be able to subscribe for that, start watching that content, and I promise you, if you watch some of the early videos, I do admit I'm a little bit on a certain political side, trying to be a little bit contentious. But as that channel's gone on, I'm trying to weave a middle ground route, and that's what I've tried to do here. It's actually really hard to do because we all have our own biases, but I've tried my best. I've shown you my biases, and some of you might got annoyed that they were shown. But in the end, I think we should live and let live, and we should just drop this and stop trying to make a news story out of it. Bloody Piers Morgan, he's the master of it, isn't he? Amount of problems he's caused by, putting something on his channel that's whipped up a whole bunch of something. There's people in prison because of what he's done. That's my belief, but that's another video, isn't it? Thanks for watching. See you all soon. You lovely lot.